All through the rest of the day, I didn't speak to my mom-in-law and I didn't speak to my wife. She knocked and I didn't even open. Since I could not eliminate her, I decided to frustrate her. I started by rejecting her food and I decided to not pay attention to her in any way, down to finance. I stopped having my night baths because I knew so well how much she hated the fact that most people do not bathe in the night. I decided to be her morning torture. I picked up every ugly habit that would stand a chance in eliminating the peace she wanted to keep up in the marriage. She hid every misunderstanding we had, and her mom was done with the omugwo. I called her one day. I came back home and I told her that I wouldn't want her to continue with her work. I came up with a silly excuse that since my work was enough to feed the house, then there would be no need her going to work. Now, this line of action was to eliminate her from any other source of income, thereby confining her to the house, and also in the process losing friends that had come to her help or her aid if anything had gone south. She refused to go by my order, and I threatened that the marriage would end if by any chance she decided to go on with her work. This woman looked me in the eye and decided that we divorce if her work would be put on the line after years of study. And that since we only had but a child, that the custody would be no issue. As to the fact that she would not hinder me from seeing my own daughter, I felt my whole body go cold and I walked out. When the maternity leave was over, she went back to her occupation and I was triggered. I wanted to end her at all costs since she could not go by my rules. And yes, my rules was in order to eliminate her or to make things easier for me to eliminate her, and so as to go on with marrying the one I truly wanted, someone who wouldn't be a burning furnace to my skin. When my baby clocked 8 months, I came home to a paper on the dining, and that paper was divorce papers. Now this time around, I wasn't the one serving her the divorce. She was the one serving me the divorce. I looked around the house and she was nowhere to be found. I started to panic. The first place my mind went to was maybe at her parents' house. But before you know it, the door opened and she walked in. She smiled at me, which was weird, and asked me if I had seen what she dropped on the dining and if I had signed it. I looked at her with confusion and acted as though I was not offended in any way. In fact, this was exactly what I was looking for the past few months. So I picked up the pen in my bag and I signed it immediately. She thanked me and walked away with my little baby in her hands. I felt humiliated, but I had to cover it. Who is giving her the ginger? Who is the motivation behind everything? It was definitely not her mom, because her mom loved me and wouldn't even believe I could hurt a fly. Throughout the rest of that day, she kept singing, "Thank you for saving me. Thank you, my God." I saw it as mockery and still acted aloof. The next day, this woman packed every belonging of hers and left my place to her mother's house. While she was packing, I didn't bother. I didn't help her. She called the Uber because she kept the car key I would normally use and she would normally use on the table. Called Uber and Uber took her away. I didn't reach her for weeks. I was still hot. My ego was hot. Not that I cared or I loved her, but because it was much harder for me to operate from a distance. I had no access to her footwears, her underwears, her clothes, her hair, anything from her belongings in order to attack her. It was much harder. I tried looking and monitoring her through my mirror, and I found out that even after she left my house, she didn't develop any relationship with any man outside.